tonight. Talk a little bit about Thursday night's class. And then my schedule was a little weird this week. I was traveling yesterday evening, so I didn't have office hours. I'm going to stay after class for office hours tonight. And then if that doesn't work for people, just let me know, and I'm happy to schedule another time to meet with you. I know a few people in going over kind of the check-in quizzes had some questions. One thing to remember about those check-in quizzes is that I don't always write responses to everything because sometimes it doesn't warrant a response, but if it does, I will make a note in I don't know if it says comments, but then you can go back in and see my notes or my thoughts or my comments or any suggestions that maybe I have that you've outlined in one of the questions to answer. So I would also say if you have kind of an urgent need, I would suggest you can still put it in the check-in quiz, but I would also recommend that you reach out to me. I'm kind of in and out of the check-in quizzes. They're not due till Friday, so I'm not in them every day. So if you filled it out on Monday and you needed an answer quickly on something, I may not be in there on Monday or maybe Tuesday. So if there is an urgent need, I would suggest that you reach out to me directly and not just rely on the check-in quizzes. So last week we did have the check-in quiz, we had the mini assignment, and we had the week 1 discussion board. Those were all things that were worth points last week. This week we have the check-in quiz, which please remember that this is due on Friday. I had it due on Sunday the first week just because it was the first week, but normally I'm going to have these due on Friday, so the check-in quiz is due this Friday, which is the 12th, I believe, and your client form is due this week. We'll go over that a little bit later, but that is the document that you're going to write up. You're going to answer some questions about your client, and you're going to submit it through Canvas to me. Does anybody, before I kind of jump into things we're going to do, does anybody have any general questions, anything you kind of need from me before we get started? I'm going to look, when I'm sharing my screen, it's harder for me to see hands and chat, so feel free, nothing in chat, to just kind of speak out if you have a question. You don't need to raise your hand. Okay, so we're gonna do a Kahoot. I don't know how I feel about Kahoots. I had a class a couple quarters ago. That was so weird. Like I clicked the thing and everybody went down. Okay, let's try this Kahoot thing again. Hopefully it doesn't, this. Uh, Oh, okay. So music. Is there a way to turn off the music? Okay, so if you all can try to join, if you can't on your computer, if you're not on a computer or you're on a phone and you're having trouble, but if you can join, please go to kahoot.it. Thank you so much. I'm afraid if I turn the volume down, then you won't hear me. Okay. Okay, there'll be a few more of you, hopefully, can get in before we get started. Let's see. 10, 11, here we go. Okay, so this is, these are just a few, we're going to kind of prime ourselves a little bit for discussion that we're going to have on chapter 2 in the textbook, which is called the research question. Oh, this is so annoying. Uh, I'm going to kind of stop talking. Let's go ahead and get this thing started and see what happens. Okay. Okay. Well, I appreciate some people saying, I don't know. Let me look here really quick. So, suggest primary data collection options. Right. Okay. So, sorry, my mouse isn't working. Um, right. So the correct answer is suggest primary data collection options. Uh, at the point of kind of problem formation, which is way at the start of your research, I would argue that you as the researcher might want to start thinking about this, but it is not something that should lead you into what your decision problem is going to be. Okay? Okay, let's go on to the next one. Oh, scoreboard. Okay, there we go. Um, okay. Okay, so 1966 was the correct answer. Um, next one. Oh, I have some of these are not from chapter 2 in the book. I guess I didn't realize what So as far as I know, it is the third largest college in Washington behind UW and WSU. And I'm going to say that probably is still accurate. I know that was accurate up to a couple of years ago. I think even the COVID data didn't really affect it too much. And in the past, Bellevue was bigger than like Western and some of the other state schools. So big school. Okay, who's winning? Armand, you're just crushing it here. Okay, what's next? Okay, so the answer to this is true. We will talk about discovery-oriented and strategy-oriented decision problems. Um, most of the work in this class, you will be more than likely working on a discovery-oriented decision problem. Um, this is oftentimes we use this when we're just trying to figure out like what is going on, why is it going on, what's happening. Um, but there are two options for decision problems. Um, okay, let's go here. Oh boy, I don't know who Joey is because there is no Joey in our class.
It's
But
Jonathan, sorry.
Jonathan, okay, thank you. Okay, let's go to the next question. May have done this question wrong now that I'm looking at it. Did this question only let you choose one? Anyone?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Sorry, I set this one up wrong. So discovery-oriented decision problems answer what and why. And so it's everything but the correct choice. So I should have written this question better. I apologize. Um, discovery-oriented decision problems are usually not common with planned change. They are more common with unplanned change. Definitely trying to answer why, what, and generating useful information to help the research project move forward. Sorry about that. That's my bad. I probably just screwed somebody up as the leaderboard here. So hopefully I didn't mess too many people up. Let's see. Okay, let's go on to the next one. I gotta get better at writing Cahoots. Um, yeah, I wrote this one wrong too. I'm sorry, boy, I'm just really messing up this Kahoot because our strategy-oriented decision problems answer how. They are commonly used with plan change. They focus on selecting alternative courses of action. Man, I am just, okay, let's see. Did I mess people up again? Uh, okay, do I have any questions? Let's see if I can get the next ones right. Okay, This one I did okay on. The answer is our research problems state specifically what research can be done. They don't need to be limited to 10 words, although they're usually not terribly long. Doesn't necessarily describe what library resources you will use, and does not start with a why or a how. We'll talk about that a little today. They usually start with more of an act. So they're definitely looking to state the research that you are going to do. Okay, let's see. Okay. And the last one. Typo. Nice job. All of the above. If you look on page 23, I think, maybe 21, it also talks about what our research agreement should include. And while we're not calling it a research agreement necessarily, we're going to call it our research to planning paper. These are the items that are going to be included in that paper. The background of your client, the decision and research problems, sorry about the typo there, the use of the data, the population and subgroups, and the logistics. Okay, let's see. Does this tell us? Okay, way to go, Jonathan. I have no prize for you, but congratulatory statement on, oh my goodness. These are a lot. I'm going to get out of here because this music is driving me crazy. Okay. Okay, so well, I kind of messed that up a little bit on a couple of those questions, which I apologize. I was just trying to kind of warm us up for chapter 2, where we're going to talk about decision problems and research problems. So let me get to, sorry, going to get to I lose Canvas. Okay. Okay. So we're going to go over week 1, chapter 1, and more so chapter 2 is what we're going to talk about. I'm sorry, I'm working off of one monitor tonight too, and it's just struggling. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, so we are going to talk about chapters 1 and chapters 2. Chapter 1, okay. So we are a marketing class, and we are doing a research class right now. So marketers need information. So in this class, we are going to gather data, use that information to make connections to recommendations or actions. And actually, I'm going to skip down here. Okay, so this is a graphic that that I like. It kind of, in a way, really spells out pretty much this whole class, right? So what we're doing this week and next week is we are really trying to formulate the problem. Who is the client and what is their problem? In this class, we are going to call that the decision problem. Sometimes I switch back and forth from calling it a business problem to a decision problem. I'm going to stick with decision problem because that's what they use in the book. But really, it is the problem, the business problem for your client. That is our decision problem that we are trying to formulate. We are going to talk about next week different research designs. Chapter 3 talks about the exploratory, descriptive, and causal research designs. We're going to talk about all of them, but most of the work done in this class is going to be exploratory research. But we're going to talk more about that next week. We then are looking at primary data and we're looking at secondary data. So primary data is kind of determining the data collection method. In this class, we're going to do a survey. We're going to design the survey. We're going to design the sample. We're going to talk about your population and your sample. And then you're going to collect data. For secondary data, you're going to identify your data source, right? So on Thursday, Felipe is going to come and talk to you. He is our embedded librarian. So he is going to walk you through a lot of the different databases that we have available in the library. And that is where a lot of your secondary research will come from. You're going to aggregate your data, right? So that means you're going to have all kinds of data, right? At a minimum in this class, you have to have 45 annotated bibliographies. So you're going to have 45 different data sources, and you're going to aggregate that. So aggregate means you need to take all of that information and make some sense of it, is really what that means, right? You're going to take all that data to make connections back through your research problems up to your decision problem, right? So all the data that you collect in this paper should be information that is helping you address your decision problem. I jumped a little bit to analyze and interpret data. This is where you're going to, the data collection paper really kind of comes in play right here. And then at the end, you're going to prepare your research report. In this class, we do an executive summary and a presentation of the information you've collected, what it means, why it matters, and how it helps you inform your decision problem. So this is, in a way, this is the entire class in picture form. So what are some of the key steps in the problem formation? Number one, right, the most important is meet with the client. I'm hoping that most of you have done that by now. If not, you're kind of wrapping up that part of the process. Because step 2, which is clarify the problem or the opportunity, you need to get that information from the client. And then from that, you will state the decision problem. Of this class, focusing on 3 of them is usually enough for students, and also keeping in mind that one of your research problems does need to address your primary data collection. We'll talk about research problems here in a moment. And prepare the research request agreement. We kind of call that something different in this class. This is, you're not, if you were maybe a consultant and preparing this for someone to approve, we are looking at that as kind of our research to planning paper is similar to what they're calling the research request in this book. So in our Kahoot, we talked a little bit about little typo there too, discovery-oriented versus strategy-oriented decision problems. Discovery-oriented decision problems are more common with unplanned change, where strategy-oriented decision problems are more common with planned changes. For discovery-oriented, we're really trying to, for most people, or most students in this class, if this is a new client for you, 99% of the time you are going to be thinking about a discovery-oriented decision problem. What is going on? Why is it going on? Strategy-oriented usually means that you already have some data on the client. And a strategy-oriented decision problem usually is looking at two different paths to go down. And we'll talk about that in a minute with some examples. The textbook says researchers should conduct strategy-oriented research if possible. You know, perhaps, but not always, right? Sometimes you are, you don't know what's happening or why it's happening. And for that purpose, you need a more kind of flexible way to gather information. And that is more of a discovery-oriented process. So the decision problem describes the manager's view of the situation. The research problems restate the decision problem in research terms, or as the book says, the research problem states specifically what research can be done to provide answers to the decision problem. So we have a few examples here. Decision problem, why are store revenues so low? And some of the research problems could be investigate current customer satisfaction, assess target market perceptions of the store. So when we're doing a problem, we are going to start our decision problem with a what or a why. Our research problems are going to start with action words such as investigate or assess, determine, measure, right? So if we're looking at this decision problem, the research problems, again, should state specifically what research can be done to try and answer the decision problem. So, why are store revenues so low? Research problem one, investigate current customer satisfaction. That is some research that you can do, primary research. Customer satisfaction, same with target market perceptions. That is research that you can do, will do, to address the decision problem. This is kind of repeating the same thing. Let's talk about down here. This decision problem is more of a strategy-oriented. I think this is just really saying, you know, you can have multiple research problems, sometimes because of resources, because of time, because of money. You may not be able to do all of them, especially with primary research, primary data collection. You know, that can take time. Sometimes it can take money. In this class, it probably isn't going to take money, but primary data usually requires some resources. So most students in this class just do one type of primary data collection because we want to kind of focus on doing that one really well. If we're looking at how do we increase store traffic, this example example is a strategy-oriented decision problem. We're starting with how. Strategy-oriented decision problems usually start with how. And they are also looking at 2 courses of action usually. So the examples here, even though one is crossed out, is, investigate effectiveness of different sales promotions, determine consumer response to 2 proposed ad campaigns. Each one of those is kind of looking at 2 different courses of action. Multiple ad campaigns, determining responses, looking at the effectiveness of different sales promotions. Things to remember: your decision problem is the basic problem facing the manager for which marketing research is intended to provide answers. It should be stated as a question. The research problems state specifically what research can be done to answer the decision problem. Each research problem begins with an action. Gosh, I got a ton of typos in here. I am so sorry. An action word, and describes information to be uncovered that might help solve the decision problem. Page 19 gives some examples. I would also say page 22 and 23, which does have an example of a research request agreement, is also another good example to look at as we get closer to our first longer written assignment. I reference people to page 22 and 23 as an example to look at. And here's an example from from those pages. So the decision problem is why aren't more students using the services of family crisis services? Some of the research problems that they want to use: investigate student awareness of the services offered by FCS primary data. This could be a survey that's sent out to students on campus. Determine the incident level of domestic violence among local university students. This could be both primary and secondary data collection. Definitely there would be secondary data on this. One thing to think about when collecting primary data is while surveys are usually anonymous, right? Sometimes there are things that people don't like to talk about and don't like to answer questions about. Domestic violence may be one of those things. So while there could be some primary data collected on that, some of the things that we want to think about, which we're going to talk about in a few weeks down the road when we're talking about developing surveys, how to develop a good survey, how to answer, how to craft good questions, and thinking about some of the error that we might see in our surveys. When you're asking sensitive questions, you have to be ready to know that some people may not answer those truthfully for lots of different reasons. But these 2 examples are on page 22 and 23 of the textbook. Okay, so decision and research problems. I think, these may take, let me get rid of this for a second here. These are going to take a little bit of work in crafting. We're going to do a number of different things with this. We're going to have, we're going to do a little bit of group work. What time is it? 6. We're going to, I think it's in week 4, we use our discussion board to put our decision, maybe it's week 3, I got to double check, to put our decision and research problems into a discussion post so that I can see them and I can start to give you feedback on them, and your colleagues can also give you some feedback. And then maybe it's by week 4 then we have, your decision and research problems have to be approved. We do that through our Google Doc. So we get a little bit of time to work on them, and then we have to we're going to put a final version of them into our Google Doc, and that's what's going to kind of guide us through the rest of this class. You'll hear me ask many times, how does this connect to your research problems? How does that connect to your decision problem? How does that data help inform your decision problem? I will probably sound like a broken record by the end of this class. So these are really important things to kind of get right at the beginning. I just had something I was going to say. Let me stop for a minute and see if people have questions. I'm going to stop sharing too for a minute just so I can see everybody. What questions do we have about decision and research problems? I'm going to pull up something else that's going to help us, but I'm going to pull up a worksheet that I put together. This is not required. You don't get points for doing it, but it's something that might help you kind of think through your decision and research problems. Sorry, I lost everybody. Let me get back to Zoom. Let me share my screen. Oh, there's a chat. Let me see. Thank you, Jonathan. Sorry, I didn't see that when you posted it. Okay. Can you see my screen? I'm sorry. It looks like yes. I think I am sharing my screen. I am sharing my screen. Is that accurate? You can see decision and research problems.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Let me make these a little bit bigger. So this is in the week 2 module. It is, I mean, you don't have to use this, but just, things to think about as you're starting your research, right? So your decision problem, I'm going to assume that everybody's doing exploratory unless we talk and we determine otherwise, right? So you're starting with a why or a what, and then you're going to end up with 3. You could always, 4, 5, 6, and then as you start to narrow it down, you'll get down to 3. But you're going to, make sure you're starting these with our action words: assess, measure, investigate, determine. And then these are just some things to think about, questions to ask yourself as you're starting to put your decision and research problems together. What is the problem or issue you are researching? So this kind of lies in the business problem that your client has. What are they telling you they are struggling with that could be addressed with some type of marketing solution, right? If it's, my sales are low, my sales are low. Okay, well, and I think in the client form, which we'll look at, I need you to go a little bit deeper than that, right? So if your client says, my sales are low, okay, so, why do you think your sales are low? I think they're low because, people, we're a small restaurant on the east side, and we're tucked away and people can't find us. Okay, so location might be an issue. Let's look at, you could look at competitors. So I'm sorry, I'm jumping to research. But so when you're talking to your client about the problem, kind of try to keep asking them questions. If they just give you, well, sales are low, I need you to fix that. Well, that's pretty broad. So, keep kind of asking them why do you think they're low? give me some examples, maybe certain days, sometimes on restaurants. I think I gave this example before, but there was a client who had a coffee shop, and their issue were lower sales in the afternoon, which may not seem too unusual, but yet sometimes I go into Starbucks at 3:00 and the place is packed. So dig as deep as you can into the problem. Why did you choose this decision problem? Again, I think that's just continuing conversations with your client. They may have multiple problems. Vivian, do you have a question? I saw your mute.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
So what if they just say that it's the reason is because they haven't done any marketing? I mean, would you say that's a good enough answer? They're saying like their sales are low, and you are asking why, and they're like, well, we haven't done any marketing for this specific product or whatever service.
Can I?
Okay, yes. So
a little bit more.
So the business I'm working with, they began offering a new service. It's an optometry practice, but they started offering medical aesthetic treatments.
Mm-hmm.
And their sales have been low with just regarding the medical aesthetic treatments. Everything else is normal.
Okay.
I asked why, and they said we haven't done marketing for it, or much marketing, if any.
Okay.
Maybe like done a couple social media posts.
So do they know that this is maybe service isn't the right word. I guess it is a service. That this is something that their customers want? Yeah. Have they done research to make sure that they know? So that might be. Yeah. So I would say that you do have a little bit of an angle in that it's it's a business and they're doing all this other stuff and it's great, but now they've got this new product or this new service. So that's kind of the first thing. And it could be, well, we haven't marketed this, but you might, some of the data you might want to start to look at is not that you're questioning whether they know what they're doing.
Yes.
Do they know that they have a market for this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Could be something to investigate.
Okay.
As well as competitive, competitors. Competitive analysis. Does everybody else has been doing this for 10 years, and now I'm exaggerating, Vivian, but you know what I mean. Are we late to the game? I mean, so those might be some things that you could dive into. I think you've got it in that it's a different angle. It's not just like, oh, our sales are low and we don't have any marketing. It's a specific thing that they're looking at within their bigger. So I think that's okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
Yes. Good example. Thank you. Sorry, I'm also not really checking the chat here. So now it doesn't look like there's any chat. Okay. As you start to do your secondary research, what time is it? It's okay. Start to think about, because Felipe will probably ask you this when you go to meet with him, but kind of identifying keywords that you're including in your search. It could be, Vivian, if we're using you as an example, it could be that service, which I can't remember what you just said, but that one. It could be the general, it could be the industry, it could be, what's the word I'm looking for? Medical procedures. I don't even know what this is, Vivian. So I'm totally not talking about anything that I know, but like health services, or did you say it's an optometrist?
Yeah, he's an optometrist, but he's offering pretty much like facial services with like medical grade devices.
Okay, so maybe not. They're like I'm not trying to say not necessary, but not.
It's cosmetic.
Yeah, or something like that.
Yes.
So looking into kind of that. So just, so think of some key search words, because when you start to dive into these databases, you're going to need to, it's easier if you have somewhat of an idea of what you're looking for. Although you don't always know, right? Sometimes you got to start really broad, and then just in looking at the research, you will find other words that you can use moving forward. Do you need to narrow or broaden your research? Sometimes there might be a narrowing down. Sometimes there could be a broadening out. The broadening one, sometimes there's oftentimes a lot of good information on kind of like the industry. There are oftentimes industry, shoot, I've just lost what I'm trying to say. It'll come to me. I'll think about it as I'm going through. You want to make sure that you're evaluating your sources. Do you have to use only databases from the library? No. Would I like you to use those more often than not? Yes. I haven't done this yet, but I may be adjusting the last annotated bibliography to have a number that is required from library sources. The first two annotated bibliographies, probably not, because you're still kind of learning how to use it. But you should be investigating, and we'll talk a little bit later, and I think Felipe may talk about kind of the CRAP guide, which is like the credibility of your sources. CRAP, what does the CRAP guide stand for? Let's look and see. This isn't a CRAP guide, and I'm using the word CRAP, and it also is an acronym for something as well, but let's just, sorry, I can't move you all, and I'm having trouble. Here we go. So kind of the authority, who's the author, the purpose, why was the source created, where was it published, how is it relevant to your research, data publication, documentation. You don't want to use a lot of sources where they're trying to sell you things. Why was it created? Was it created to sell you things? Who's the intended audience? Who's publishing it? It's funny, I had a conversation with my 81-year-old mom on Facebook who read something, and she's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I'm like, Mom, I don't know if you should take your sources that have like emoji hands pointing down to click on a link for more information as like the total reliable source. So, just kind of think about where you're getting the information. Who is the author? What else have they written? Does it have an economic value for the author or the publisher? This is where the thing is like, kind of, are they trying to sell you something? Is it an educational resource? Who's the intended audience? So this link is in here for you to use. And I think in some of my resources in the modules, there is something called the CRAP guide, which is also helpful. We'll talk about APA a little bit. I do kind of a mini lecture on that, but we definitely use APA in this class. Understand what is plagiarism. We talked about this on the first day of class. If you are having trouble citing your sources, if you don't really understand how to, if you don't know how to paraphrase something, I just need you to ask, and I will walk you through it all. I do find that oftentimes when I see something that is not cited, it's often just because students don't really understand how to do it. Not always. Some people know how to do it and don't want to, but so APA, generally speaking, uses in-text citations and a reference page, right? So that's what I'm going to be looking for in your papers when you are citing sources. but I have a little mini lecture that we'll go over. I think maybe that's next week. Researchability isn't a real word, I don't think, but it represents an important aspect of creating a good decision problem. Seems a bit obvious, but you don't want to find yourself in the midst of investigating your decision problem and realize you don't have enough research to draw from for your analysis. And right now you're probably like, Shannon, is my decision problem, does it have good researchability? We would have to, I would be happy to talk to you during office hours or schedule another time. But some of this has to do with your client and who your client is and what kind of data you might find for your client's industry, competitors, competitive analysis. Most people, there is enough information. Sometimes I find students that have a client that is super niche, that can be a struggle sometimes to find information. And when that's the case, often they then have to broaden their research to look at things that are not specific to their client, but has a connecting kind of string to it. But other than that, I find that students are usually most of their clients and the decision problems they're working on have a pretty good level of researchability. Okay. Oops. And over here. Okay. What time is it? Oh my gosh, we only have like 15 minutes left. Okay. I don't think we're going to get to any small group work. I was really hoping that we could do that, but I do want to talk about a couple of things coming up this week. Which I guess it's in this week, but I should move it to week 2. I think I don't have it in week 2. Oh, I don't have it in week 2. Okay, let's go to the assignments. I'm going to put this in the week 2 module. I don't know why it's not there. So this week you need your client form to be completed, which in assignments I'm not under the student view. Let's go to the student view. Here we go. Okay. So under assignments, you are going to find, sorry, where's it? Okay. I did not make this into a quiz, so I'm going to ask that you, put it into a Word document. You can kind of cut and paste these things that you need to fill out. But this has to be in by Sunday. So basically what this means is you need to confirm your client by Sunday. If you are having trouble with that, I need you to reach out to me. I need you to stay after class so we can talk. This is where you're going to give me your client name, your contact person, where's the business located, what is their business about, give me a little bit here, right? Give me, coffee shop. Give me a little bit more, okay? What problems does the client face? You could write, if there are multiple things, you can write that down. Eventually we're going to focus on one, but they may have talked to you about a number of different problems that they might be facing. Again, making sure that these are problems they are facing that can be solved with some type of marketing solution. Beyond making more money or finding new customers, what specific challenges could be addressed by a marketing campaign? Has the client agreed to share financial numbers with you? I think a couple people, and I hear you, these are kind of yes and no questions, but if you can give me a little bit, like, have they agreed to share with you? Yes, they have agreed to share right now, sales data with me over the past year. Just give me a little bit more than a yes or no. have they agreed to share detailed information to highlight challenges? Again, give me a little bit more than yes or no, and then why you're interested in working with this client. That helps me with a little insight into your motivation. So this needs to be in by Sunday. Again, if you're having some issues with this or with the client or being able to answer those questions, if you can stay after class, please do, or send me an email so we can schedule a time to meet. I also want to, stop. Nope, I'm not going to stop sharing. Let me go quickly into modules. So Thursday, Thursday class is dedicated entirely to the library. And if you scroll down to the bottom, I'm going to go fast, so bear with me for a second here. There is a digital marketing research, secondary research module. It would be great if you could review this before Thursday. He's not necessarily going to ask questions, but he is going to go over, he may not be able to go over all of these with you. Usually he talks about simply analytics, Statista, Euromonitor. Oh, it looks like I had this twice. But if you do have some questions about these, this is a great time to ask. Obviously, he's available to us all quarter long. So I know sometimes early on, people just don't know exactly what to ask. But I would greatly appreciate it if you can do a skim through at least of this module before Thursday. I am not going to be in class on Thursday. I have a commitment, and Felipe has agreed because really he pretty much takes the whole time anyway, and I sit and listen, which I always learn something. But he has his link is in the Thursday's classes is his link, and so he will be running class on Thursday. So I'm hoping that you will all be prepared. He will talk a lot of the time because he's really trying to go through and show you where everything is, how to do some of the searches, how to think about the data that you can find in these different databases. He'll use some examples. If you have an example, if your client, if you wanted to share with him your client, and he can maybe use that as an example as he's working through some of this, that is really helpful to him just to have something to work with. But if not, he kind of will, make up a client on his own and talk you through this. But this Thursday is really, if you have not been in the library in a while and you have not used these databases that are listed here, but anyway, Thursday's class is going to be super helpful as a starting out point. In the past, I have even brought Felipe back kind of mid-ish, little past halfway point to kind of come in and do another session with us. But for now, this is kind of a getting you started. Has anybody used any of these in the past? Simply Analytics or Statista? Data Axle, IBIS World. You can kind of give me a thumbs up if you've used some of this. Come on. Okay, Max and June. Okay, a few folks. Alexis, good. Okay, Jonathan, thank you. So it may not be entirely new, but maybe I know Simply Analytics is fairly new for us at the college, and it's a really robust tool. So I hope that Felipe is able to at least do a quick not a quick, but an overview of that for you. A lot of these, you really have to just get in and kind of play with it. And that's where your key words are going to come in. And that's where keywords which lead to data or journal articles or reports that have other keywords in them, I would recommend like keeping I'm old, so like a piece of paper or a sticky note on your computer. And as you're starting to do some of this research, as other words kind of pop up in the data that you're finding, that you kind of type, keep track of some of those. So you've got, a list, you've got 10, you've got 20 kind of keywords of things that you're going to be looking for as you go into some of these sources. Where is, what am I looking for? The marketing LibGuide is helpful. Let's see here. And then so these are some of the data sources that he'll go over, but then there are some other links here. Pew Research, it may not be helpful to everybody, but this is a really great, this can be a good source for people. There's some information on citing your sources here. So this marketing LibGuide, there's Felipe right there. He will be showing up to class on Thursday. And he is just, I can't explain to you enough in this class how lucky we are to have him. He is one of your best resources in this class. You have to meet with him at least once because it is an assignment in class, but the students that are successful in this class often meet with him more than once. So just kind of throwing that out there. Let me see, do I have some chats here? Nope. Jason, I'm going to read this out in the chat. Does the annotated bibliography going to be the research we found related to? Yes. It's not a dumb question. It's a perfectly good question. Your annotated bibliographies, you're going to have, I'm going to stop sharing for a second because your annotated bibliographies are, and we're going to talk about that probably next week in more detail. But you have to have 45 annotated bibliographies. That means you have to have at least 45 secondary sources. And just kind of a quick, an annotated bibliography is pretty much a summary, a very brief summary of your source. Okay? And yes, that will be, those sources should be connected to one of your research problems in some way, shape, or form. And then those research problems are crafted to help you answer your decision problem. 45 different sources. That is correct. 45 different sources. In this class, we split them up into annotated bibliography part 1, part 2, and part 3. Part 1 is 10 sources. Part 2 is 15, and part 3 is 15. Way back many years ago, I used to have them all due at the end of class. And I think that didn't help any of us, to be quite honest with you. For me, it was like grading 25 people with 45 sources was just kind of a nightmare. But I think it's easier to kind of, for students more so, to split them up throughout the class. So yes, you will have 45. It may seem like a lot, but it's, it's a good number. But the first group will be 10. And I think you will be able to find 10 sources that help support your research. We are running out of time. I am running out of time. Does anybody have any other questions about anything? I am going to stay after class, and I'm happy to talk to folks. Thursday is important. Please come to hear Felipe. And then next week, we're going to start to dive into chapters 3 and 4, which is the research design and secondary data. We're going to start talking about the annotated bibliographies. And we're going to start forming and getting closer to finalizing our decision and research problems. Now I would say you should have a client. You should be finishing up conversations with your client. You should be filling out your client form by Sunday. And I would argue that you should start to be thinking about your decision and research problems, just drafting them out. And we will start to hone those together as we go through the next couple of weeks. Okay. Let me just look really quickly on my sheet about what we were going to do in class today. We are not going to do in-class group work. Next week we have Felipe, and yep, we're going to do 3 and 4 annotated bibliographies and some APA stuff next week. Okay, I don't think I have anything else. Like I said, I'm going to have my office hours now. If you can't make it or anything comes up throughout the rest of